Hello and welcome to Tech is for Everyone, the podcast series that deep dives into tech professionals' journeys using their experience to get you the best hints and tips to break into the world of tech. Just starting your career or looking to sidestep into a new industry or wanting to climb through the ranks, tune in and get ready to be inspired. Today I'm joined by Becky Baker, founder of not one but two startup tech companies. Becky and I explore how she kickstarted her journey from law to tech, how learning from her mistakes was key, and that hot topic, AI, and can we fully rely on it? If you're thinking of getting into tech and or exploring founding your own tech business, tune into Becky's episode for more great points.
Well, thank you for coming in.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, that's great. So you are founder of not one but two startup businesses.
For my sins, yes.
Glutton for punishment, clearly.
I always swore I would only do it once and had one good idea, but then inspiration struck again at the end of last year and I couldn't help myself. So.
Right, fair enough. All exciting, all at the start. Big dreams.
Yep, to go from my first venture, K9 Nation, I was a first-time founder. I knew nothing about being a founder, never mind a tech startup. No one in my family had ever owned their own business, nothing. So it was a real standing start for me, whereas I've been through the mill a bit with K9 and learned some lessons, so I'm taking the second one a little bit differently.
Now you've got the battle scars, where you've made the mistakes maybe and not made them again.
Yeah, and it's just you learn so many lessons, and there's not that I did anything wrong first time out, but you just learn things, whether it's product market fit or route to market or just, operating in a lean way. You just learn stuff, and when you go again, you try and do it a bit differently. So
That's good.
Yeah.
How's the second one going? Is that?
It's good. It's still really super early, like MVP stage. So still trying to do experiments, find that product market fit. To be honest, I wasn't really going to do much in the market about it, but then I got a really fantastic opportunity to speak at the FinTech North conference in November in Manchester. And it was one of those opportunities that it was just too good to pass up. So it kind of forced me out the gate a little bit sooner than I thought I was going to go, but some really great opportunities come off the back of that. So
that's good.
I just, as I said, I wasn't going to do anything with it until January really, but you take the opportunities when they come.
You've got to, yeah, absolutely. If you don't at that point, you never know when it might come back around. So
exactly, and
can't really say no.
It seems to be with that one. I don't know, like I say, if it's just that my network's improved since K9 or if it's just that it's a different opportunity, but there seems to be more unlocked doors as an analogy that if I just give them a little push, they're opening.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes with K9, the first one, you were pushing on locked doors and it was quite an effort, whereas I'm nudging them at the minute and they're opening and I'm walking through and seeing what opportunities on the other side. So I know it sounds very cryptic, but without saying too much.
You don't want to give too much away. It's got to be hard with a true startup to, it's almost like pushing a boulder uphill, isn't it? I guess at times you've got this great idea, but actually how that comes into realization is a much harder task, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, it's different stories for different people. I'm not from a particularly affluent background, I still live alone at the minute. So, the reality of it, I have bills to pay. Yeah. I still work part-time on the side as a consultant for a legal firm, helping with their tech. So it's complementary, but, ideally you want to go all in with your business, don't you? But the reality of life is you have bills to pay.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't have someone wealthy supporting me on the side. I don't have a ton of savings in the bank. It's not because I'm not committed, but the practicality is I have to put a roof over my head and have financial commitments. So it is really hard working out really early doors. Either I don't want to take on capital too quickly because my valuation would be rubbish and I'd have to give away so much of my business, or you simply wouldn't be able to, even if you were prepared to give away 50% equity straight away. Not everyone will understand the vision and want to, hand over cash at that point. So that first step is often the hardest. Like, how do I prove the concept or build an MVP in the most cost-effective way, or just demonstrate some traction so that I can get this thing out there and see what people think about it. Yeah. And I think a lot of people try and make things perfect, and I did with K9. You want it to be the all singing, all dancing version, because if it's not, how do you know if people will really like it? And I think that's a little myth we tell ourselves and hide behind, whereas you can't let perfect stand in the way of good. You just need to get something working out there, see what people think about it.
Take some feedback on and then make tweaks and
iterate,
changes.
go again, iterate, go again, so you get product market fit. But it's hard.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that first time around.
Yeah, but you do now.
Yeah.
So what does technology mean to you then?
So I'm slightly on the side of being a non-techie in the sense that I don't write code myself. So typically before I did my startups, I was in a software product manager role.
Right.
And I've always viewed technology as a tool.
Okay.
Like an enabling tool.
Yeah.
I think there's lots of different ways we can apply it. There's so much talk of AI, and I'm always going to seminars and conferences to expand my knowledge. And I know people get scared it's going to take over and replace humans, but the way I see it is it's a tool to enable us to live more efficient lives, better lives in different ways. But I think it's about how we apply that as humans and the responsibility we have to do it responsibly and in the right way. So it's very much a tool for me.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. I think, especially on the AI point, it's kind of how can you use it almost as an assistant rather than a replacement.
Yeah.
Because even reading half the stuff it comes out with, you're like, well, I wouldn't say it like that, or actually, I wouldn't do it like that. I'd probably take 25% or 30% or 50% of it, but the other 50% is going to have to be me. So, but actually, that 50% that it did was really helpful.
Yeah, and particularly we've explored it a lot on the legal tech side about the opportunity of generative AI and client communications and reading very complex sets of documents in very fast, turnaround times and extracting information. And there are some great opportunities, but there are mutterings of, well, is this going to replace like the trainee solicitor role? How do people learn if they're not the ones drafting the documents, scouring through them, putting the hours in? How will they learn? And so I'm seeing it very much from that side, and I don't think it ever can replace it in certain professions. Yeah, it's about how we harness it in the right way and responsibly.
Yeah, that's $1 million question.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah,
if we had the answer to that.
Yeah, I know, I'm waiting for that. So whoever's going to legislate or bring in the rule book about that, it'll be really interesting, because I think even where I've looked at applications in my own startup, there's a bit of fear there for me, because what if you go down a road and you apply AI in this way? You think you're doing it ethically, which is really important. You think you are, but then there's a ruling comes out in 18 months, or legislation put in place, or best practice guidelines, and you as a startup have invested down a path, and it's the wrong path, and now you're not compliant. It can ruin so many businesses. So it's like, do I bother implementing it? Do I not? What if I do it wrong? So it's really challenging, and I think there will be some businesses who, when that guidance comes out, will come unstuck and will have a lot of technical debt because they've done stuff the wrong way. Yeah,
it's a scary place to be. I think, like you say, you can't be too reliant too early. Just use it as an enabler, but not a reliant thing.
Yeah.
So did you always want to work in tech?
No, is the simple answer.
You fell into it?
Yeah, so I had a really weird shaped career. Really sadly, when I first went to university, my dad was terminally sick, within Freshers Week. So I left uni. I worked in a law firm as a secretary, as an admin assistant in criminal law. After he passed, I went back to uni, so I was late behind my peer group in qualifying. Then I went and did a master's degree, and I believe I was going to be a teacher. Primary school teacher. Realised I wasn't the biggest fan of kids. And then did a master's in marketing advertising, came out into a recession, and ended up falling into a temping role, which was the only thing I could get in the recession, in a law firm. Again, just doing typing work with 2 degrees.
Right.
And just through being a hard worker, I got an opportunity to progress within that firm. It was a large volume property law firm, and started doing all the business development work. Fast forward a couple of years, a big US tech company bought that law firm and wanted to tech enable it. It was sort of one of the big 4 volume firms in the UK for how many transactions they did, and they thought they could grab market share by injecting really whizzy technology into that process. And because residential property transactions are quite complex, anyone who's ever bought or sold a house, I'm sure they have a million horror stories about it.
It's right pain.
It is pain. It's quite a complex process. So instead of bringing in an external technology expert or a software product manager who has that skill already and ask them to learn conveyancing, they said, well, actually, Becky's there. She understands the transactional process. Let's just train her as a software product manager, and she can work with the dev teams to on 2 products. It was our internal case management system to make us more efficient and automated, and our client experience portal where we could receive instructions and communicate with clients. So that's what they did. They trained me up to be that software product manager, and then I had a really quick immersion into working with 2 full software delivery teams, agile methodology. I was doing all the JIRA tickets, the refinements, the retrospectives, like full scale software delivery system.
Yeah.
And I really loved it.
Right,
I loved the detail of it. I loved the team I was working on. I loved the satisfaction of, I was the go-between between the lawyers who wanted this system, can it just do this? And the developers were over here being like, this code does this.
Yeah.
And I was the conduit, and it was my responsibility to interpret and deliver back to the lawyers. So completely fell into it by accident, but I've loved being in it ever since.
So what was the one thing, I guess, well, 2-pronged question. So what was the one thing about that you didn't expect? And then going to your startups and you found the role, is it something that sort of really caught you off guard, or that you didn't expect as being a founder?
I was really shocked, and this applies both to that role in-house and being a founder when you're working with agencies and investors and all the rest of it. And it's around emotional intelligence and like stakeholder management.
Yeah.
Because it's always about managing expectations, right? And building relationships. So in the case of the law firm, I had lawyers asking me to deliver X, Y, Z, and I had to manage their expectations around timescales, what was possible. I then had to build relationships with developers to go the extra mile to deliver that, to understand what it is their needs were, and it's a real big communication stakeholder management piece. Yeah. And likewise in the startup, I'm there trying to convince investors to give me money, that I'm backable. Yeah. I'm trying to convince agencies that they want to work with me, or that, whether it's them investing or whatever. It's all, for me, about communication as much as it's about technology and how those relationships work internally. And it just shocked me how much of it was reliant on that. Because if you lose that in the relationship, you're kind of screwed. It
can kind of cost you a lot.
Absolutely.
And that's something AI can't replace.
No.
The relationship building element of it.
Absolutely not. Miscommunication, assumptions.
Yeah.
Never again will I assume when I write a specification or a detailed ticket. If you need the system to give you an option of 1 or 2, write 1 or 2 on the ticket. Never make an assumption. So communication and emotional intelligence was a skill that I was shocked. I was good at it, but I was shocked how much I needed to rely on it. Yeah.
Never assumed a big one. I learned that actually fairly early on in my recruitment career. When I was doing recruitment, it was to just never assume and always ask. Because actually, if you made that one assumption once and it's wrong, it can just cost you so much.
Absolutely.
So just always ask. Can I just check?
Yeah, and that's where stand-ups are a great opportunity for that, or refinement sessions where do you understand the nature of the ticket and the requirements? Have you got any questions? And those are, sometimes you feel like you're having meeting after meeting, but they're incredibly valuable. Yeah, incredibly valuable. That and the retrospectives.
Yeah.
How could we do this better next time if someone dropped the ball, or whatever.
Yeah. So other than what you do now, in terms of running your 2 businesses, if there was like another tech job that you could do, what do you think it would be?
I wish I could code. I really wish I could code, and I've picked up that many different versions of the equivalent of coding for dummies and tried to have a look at it, but my brain just doesn't compute that language. No matter whether it's Python or Java, whatever, it doesn't sit well with my brain. It's not how it's programmed. Yeah. But I get so frustrated sometimes, particularly like we talked about earlier with when you've got that first idea. How do you build your MVP? How do you do this? I get so frustrated because I would work all the hours there are, putting the time in coding if it was something I was capable of. I don't mind hard work, and I love nothing to pull all-nighters and even work with stuff like Bubble. And I know they're making it easier for lay people to do it, but I wish I could, but I can't.
But you can't.
No.
You'd be tired if you did then, by the sounds of it. You'd be just...
I'd always be more satisfied because I'd be I've grafted for this, whereas I always feel I'm reliant on other people and being a bit of a control freak.
It's like a patience manager, expectations type thing.
Stakeholder manage myself.
If I can code, I can just go out and do this right now, but I've got to wait. So
exactly.
No, I get that. My brain doesn't work that way, unfortunately. I can do an Excel spreadsheet. That's about it.
I'm just getting to grips with pivot tables, so
Right.
yeah.
Oh, you're an expert then. That's way more than me. That's way more than me. I can do equal sum and then a couple of columns, and that's about it.
I love a good formula in an Excel.
So, what's the most important lesson that you've learned then so far?
I think don't rush the process.
Okay.
I've seen numerous examples of this both in-house and when I've had my own business, where whether you're trying to rush a build or rush a quote from an agent,
Yeah.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
things will take as long as they take. And I'm not saying like don't let it be a never-ending missing deadlines. I just mean if you try and put too much pressure on a build or something like that, people will rush, they will make mistakes, you'll end up spending longer trying to fix it, and you'll build up that technical debt. And I'm not always the most patient of people, so it's something I really try and exercise now, where I'm like, if they've said it'll take 2 weeks, let them crack on with it for 2 weeks and then chase if you need to, but don't try and pressure them and pull on that relationship, say, well, can you deliver it in 10 days, because they might give it in 10 days and then they'll spend another week fixing a bug that you found. So it's something I really try and practice now, is just like, don't rush the process.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is probably my biggest lesson.
So in your opinion, what's kind of the most important sort of personality trait for someone to be successful in tech?
I say good communication. For some of the reasons I mentioned before, but I think whatever your role, whether you're a developer, whether you're the software delivery manager, whatever the role, if you're typically working in a team, right, and you have questions, and again, it's about requirements or releases or anything, I just think you have to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
And so much can get lost and damaged if you don't have that skill. I'm not saying you have to be a chatterbox. I'm not saying you have to have an outward personality. I know stereotypically a lot of developers don't have that.
Yeah.
It's a massive wide generalization, but you still need to be able to know when it's right to communicate. You can't have the crippling shyness that you can't say, can I just validate, was this meant to do this, or was there meant to be a exit button? You have to be able to communicate in tech.
I guess that's the age-old sort of stereotype, isn't it? Where it's, everyone thinks of the Matrix, or someone sat in a dark room, maybe with a network server plugging in cables, and that was tech, which I guess 15 years ago maybe it was. Whereas actually now there's so many different roles, so many different variations of technology roles, even developer roles, like you say, aren't just coding all the time. It is, okay, actually you've got stakeholders to manage, you've got to work with test teams, you've got to work with the product manager, you've got to work with
UI, design, digital. Still for me is tech, that whole design process of the customer journey and the interface looks like that. That for me, I still count as a tech role. And all those moving parts have to be able to work together, otherwise the product won't come together. And I just think, you need to be able to speak up, ask questions, validate. Otherwise the end goal won't happen.
Yeah. So do you have a bit of a cheesy question, but do you have a favourite productivity hack?
Well, it's not necessarily a hack, but in terms of like a favourite tool, I love a good Kanban board. Love, and that makes me sound so geeky, but I do, whether it's Azure DevOps or a Jira, I don't care what the tool is, or even if it's one on the one that's just like an operational one, this name escapes me at the minute. And again, not to sound like a broken record, but it goes back to transparency and communication. I can work with a whole team, and it's horrible for a dev when I chirp up on Slack or Teams and I'm like, can I just stop you and ask, where are we with that ticket? Or, why is that ticket in block? Like the whole beauty of the Kanban board for a product manager, for a founder, whatever, is I can go on there at any one point and I can see where we're at with the sprint, and I can be like, I can look at the ticket, blocked because waiting on UI to provide assets for design, awaiting this, and then I can then push that. But the notion of the Kanban board, that just that transparency, the solicitor says, when, is that coming on this sprint? Yep, it's on the board, it's in progress, I'll let you know if I need some help on testing it. And I just love the transparency of it without me having to hassle the developers and interrupt their workflow.
As I said, does that help manage your own expectations as well? If you're that person who's going, right, it's got to be 2 weeks for this, and it's like, that's okay, we're on track, so 2 weeks is still okay.
Like, massively, and like, we were getting to the point, and I'm sure loads of people do, we were getting to the point where we understood like what a good sprint looked like in terms of our story points, so that made my job easier as a product manager, because I could be like, right, when we've gone through estimation and refinement, that's a 3. That's right. I know how many we can do this week, and that again helps me with stakeholder management and work with the business for their priorities as to what to include in that sprint and the sprint after, and the true nature of that product manager role. So yeah, anything that improves transparency, communication, stakeholder management, I'm all over. And I think a Kanban board does that.
If you had like one piece of advice to offer someone, what would it be?
I think whatever role you're setting out to do in technology, or even in not technology, but you happen to work with someone in, a cross-functional team, technology, it's just don't be afraid to ask questions, and there is no stupid question. So I've been in lots of stand-ups, and they'll be talking about a topic, and I'll be like, sorry, what's that acronym mean? Or like, why is that blocked? And there are no stupid questions, and if you've got the team dynamics right, everyone should be like, oh, I can explain that offline, Becky, or do that right. But just because you don't necessarily need to know doesn't mean you don't have the right to ask, because it's all about knowledge, right? And it's building that knowledge to help you do your job more effectively. So my recommendation would just be never afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I mean, even really experienced people in any profession should always be asking questions as well, because I don't think you can ever be the finished article in any any aspect of life. So like you say, there's no such thing as a stupid question. We always say to our people who come into our academies is, even if you think it's a stupid question, ask it anyway, because you're never going to know otherwise.
Yeah, and the person next to you might be sat there too afraid to ask and not have the confidence to ask. So if you're not asking for yourself, maybe ask for someone else in the room to help them out.
Yeah.
Get everyone on a level playing field, and back to our earlier point, assumptions, level out the assumption. Because what if someone assumed it meant something different, and they went off and did something, whereas like, can I just check, do we all mean this? Yeah. Okay, grand. Yeah. Let's go.
Let's crack on.
Yeah.
So what's the one question you wish I'd have asked you, and how would you have answered it?
I guess it would be maybe like, what do I find the hardest about working in technology?
Yeah, okay.
And I think for me, it is not understanding some of the jargon.
Right, okay.
So a lot of this come back to trust and relationship, and that's fine when you're working in-house, but as a founder of a startup business, a lot of the time you're having to work with an agency maybe to get that MVP built, and it's a quick, fast relationship you've had to do. And sometimes I feel a bit bamboozled with some of the terms they throw at me, and I don't know enough to call it.
Right, okay.
So they could be like, particularly for a lot of startup founders, if they're trying to get a quote for something,
okay.
Like, well, back-end costs are this, and this is this, and blah, blah, blah. And I was lucky that I had a bit of a technical investor after my first round at K9.
Right, okay.
And I'd always pass it in front of him.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, nah, like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
What they're quoting for there that they're saying is a 3-day job, I know it's a 3-hour piece of work. They're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. And I find a bit frustrated sometimes that I don't know how to call that out. And I just don't know enough. I only know enough of what I know, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
then that comes back to you not being afraid to ask a question.
Yeah.
Because I guess if you had been afraid and you just thought, well, that's what they've said, so I'm going to go with that, then you're paying for 3 days worth of work, not 3 hours, et cetera, et cetera. So I
just feel like a bit of a muggle.
Right.
And it's hard to know if someone says, oh, that ticket's blocked because of the server's done this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, is he telling the truth? Or is he trying to blag me because he just wants a bit more time to figure it out? And I sometimes have to run it up the ladder to someone else in the business, or just cross-check it with someone in my network, and be like, so they're giving me this reason. Does that sound right to you? And this is where you have to rely on your trust and your relationships, and the more you can build them, the better. But it is a frustration for me that I don't always know that stuff.
But I guess as well, if you ask the question, then you learn and you'll know for next time in terms of, right, okay, well, actually they're saying that that's a blockage for this reason, and actually I know that that's true now. Yeah. So next time I'm right, okay, fine. Or actually, you've quoted this for this, but I think actually you could get it done in a sooner time frame. So, like you say, you don't know what you don't know until you know.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense.
And on that bombshell.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in.
It's been a pleasure. I hope there's some insights there for people. And we said before we started recording, there are so many different roles in tech, and if we can just showcase that, and you don't have to be amazing at coding to get into it, as long as you're passionate about it and you're part of a really great collaborative team. Technology can be a really fun place to work.
And all it starts as an idea.
Exactly.
That's all you need. or two. You know,
Or two, if you're mad like me.
No, brilliant. Well, no, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Tech is for Everyone. If you're looking to start your career in tech or want to know more about how our academy can help grow and diversify your teams, then find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, or via the Qualcomm Tech Academy website. Links can be found in the description. Look forward to having you join us on the next episode.